We all know that Disney villains are really something special. There's no other place where you can find this specific flavor of cartoonishly evil, over-the-top bad guy. Much has been said about the fact that these kinds of characters don't exist much anymore. Purely evil villains have been out of style for a while. Most of modern media prefers to create complex antagonists with sympathetic backstories, who might even be right about a few things. Even Disney themselves has been doing it. Traditional writing advice says that complexity is always better, but it really depends on the story. Sometimes the plot calls for someone with no redeeming qualities. And I love me some old-fashioned, 100% grade A organic evil. I've been thinking a lot about what makes a good Disney villain, and I've come to believe that one of the most important factors is the Disney villain song. How much fun is it when the bad guy gets up and does a song and dance about how evil they are? I think that we can learn a lot about what makes these characters appealing just by analyzing their songs. I want to go through every Disney villain song from every Disney movie and see if we can decide which ones are the strongest examples. So if somebody wanted to create a new pure evil cartoon villain of their own, we know which ones they should use as a model. Step right up, step right up. It's time for the Tournament of the Century. Which one of these challengers has the scariest hench people, the most menacing evil laughs, the snazziest outfits, the grit, drive, and determination to take over and rule the world for vaguely defined reasons? And which one of you can tell us all of that through a well-choreographed musical number? It's time for a Disney Villain Sing-Off!
Now, sing.
A quick announcement before we start, I now have a Patreon. So if you want to see my videos early, or you just want to send me money for some reason, go check it out. A few quick clarifications. First, when I say Disney villain and Disney movie, I'm talking about animated movies made by Walt Disney Animation Studios, not any character or film owned by Disney. And I want to say that I'm not trying to find the best Disney villain song. I don't find that question to be very interesting, and anyway, that would be completely subjective. I'm not a reviewer, I'm trying to do literary analysis. What I really want is to figure out which Disney villain song is the most Disney villain song. Which one is the closest to the platonic ideal of a Disney villain song, that best represents all the qualities that make Disney villain songs so beloved. The idea of a Disney villain goes all the way back to the first Disney movie, Snow White, with the evil queen. From then, up until recently, it's been convention for Disney movies to have these exaggerated villains. It's not surprising that they did this so often, since their movies tended to be inspired by fairy tales, simple children's stories with flat characters and simplistic good guys and bad guys. However, the modern idea of a Disney villain song is newer. Disney movies didn't used to have that many songs in them. There would usually be, at most, one or two. But when Disney made The Little Mermaid, they decided to shake up their usual formula and structure it more like a Broadway musical with many songs. The Little Mermaid was such a big hit that it pretty much brought Disney back from the brink of financial ruin, beginning what we now call the Disney Renaissance. From then on, most Disney movies were full-on musicals that were expected to hold a collection of songs. To get started, we need a full list of every Disney villain song, which I quickly discovered is harder than you'd think. There are a lot of edge cases that are kind of villain songs and kind of not. Like in Robin Hood, there's the song The Phony King of England, which is about the villain, but it's sung by Little John, one of the good guys. Then there's Who's Been Painting My Roses Red, sung by the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland, which is like 30 seconds long. Or how about Love is an Open Door from Frozen, which is presented as a love duet, and you don't even realize Hans is a villain as he's singing it. As usual, I need to lay out some ground rules. To decide what counts as a villain song, I need to lay out the purpose of a villain song. Most songs for musicals can fit into certain categories based on their purpose in the narrative. For example, there's the I Want or the I Am song, where we get our first deep look at our protagonists and what they want out of life. Reflection from Mulan, For the First Time in Forever from Frozen, Part of Your World from The Little Mermaid. There's also the Introducing the World song, which is usually the first song of the movie that shows us the setting for the first time. Arabian Nights, Circle of Life. There's the Showstopper, the big number in the middle that's meant to be the most memorable. Be Our Guest, Prince Ali, Make a Man Out of You. There are the love songs and the comic relief character songs, which I think are self-explanatory. And of course, the villain songs. Each of these categories is grouped by their reason for being in the story, what they convey to the audience. So what's the point of a villain song? Basically, it's to show us just how evil the villain is. It exists to establish how bad they are, by having them either state or imply their impure motivations. But it's not enough just to have a black heart. The villain song also has to establish the villain as a threat. It should give us a solid look at whatever they're planning to do. By the end of a villain song, we need to know that the villain is willing, able, and actively prepared to ruin a hero's life. If it does that, it's a villain song in my book. As a quick example / sneak peek at what's to come, let's look at Be Prepared, Scar's song from The Lion King. Does this song show that he's evil? He sings about how excited he is to kill a child. Check. Does the song show that he's a threat? He says in the song that he's been planning this coup for a long time, and he's able to effortlessly manipulate the hyenas into following his orders. Check. So, a villain song is a song sung by the villain that demonstrates the fact that they are evil and that they are an active threat. Got it. With that criteria in mind, here's the full list I came up with. Poor Unfortunate Souls, Ursula, the Little Mermaid. Gaston and Kill the Beast, Gaston, Beauty and the Beast. Prince Ali, Reprise, Jafar, Aladdin. Be Prepared, Scar, The Lion King. Mine, 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 Governor Ratcliffe, Pocahontas. Hellfire, Frollo, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Yodel-Oddle-Leedle-Idle-Lo, Alameda Slim, Home on the Range. Everyone's favorite Disney movie. Friends on the Other Side, Dr. Facilier, The Princess and the Frog. Mother Knows Best and its reprise, Mother Gothel, Tangled. Shiny, Tamatoa, Moana. This Is the Thanks I Get, Magnifico, Wish. I know I said most Disney villain songs came after The Little Mermaid, but there are a few from earlier. Hi-Diddle-Dee-Dee, An Actor's Life for Me, The Fox, Pinocchio. The Elegant Captain Hook, Peter Pan. The Siamese Cat Song, The Siamese Cats, Lady and the Tramp. Mad Madam Mim, The Sword and the Stone. Two from the Jungle Book, Trust in Me by Ka, and I Want to Be Like You by King Louie. And The World's Greatest Criminal Mind, Ratigan, The Great Mouse Detective. If there are any deep-cut villain songs that I didn't mention, it's because I didn't think it counted as a villain song. But, by all means, leave a comment about how I forgot a bunch and that I'm a big dumb idiot. It helps engagement. That's our list, and that's our criteria. So in theory, to find the most villainous villain song, we go through this whole list and decide which one makes the villain seem the evilest and the scariest. But that's not nearly specific enough. I've been talking about villain songs in general. What about Disney villain songs? What do they do that make them special and cement their villains in the minds of the audience? There are a lot of tropes and techniques that Disney movies use in constructing their villain songs. Let's go through some of them and see if we can learn more about what makes Disney villain songs special. First, there's the actual difficulty of the song. These songs are meant to demonstrate their villains as capable and dangerous. A key way to represent that musically is to have the singing and dancing be complex and difficult. When the villain is hitting insane vocal runs and high notes, while they and their evil minions nail perfectly choreographed dance numbers, that serves as shorthand for the idea that this person knows what they're doing and they mean business. Some standouts in this area are, again, Be Prepared, with the hyena Nazi marching and Scar dodging lava and whatever this is while he's singing, and Frollo and Hellfire, with those powerful belting notes.
He made the devil so much stronger than a man.
Even more impressive is if you can fight and defeat the heroes while singing, as in the case of Jafar and Alameda Slim. But there's also something to be said for quiet menace. Villains like Mother Gothel don't need to be bombastic if they can strike fear into your heart by exuding a more subtle confidence. Some losers in this area are Magnifico and Tamatoa, who both literally get outsmarted and defeated during the course of their songs.
Ah, I see. She's taken a barnacle and she's covered it in bioluminescent algae as a diversion.
Next, and this should be pretty obvious, but a villain song should be dark. Most of the average Disney movie is bright, colorful, happy. A villain song is a lot more striking if it gives a gloomier feel. This could apply to either the song itself, which might be in a minor key or generally be spooky sounding, or in the setting of the scene. You've got things like Ursula singing your song in a creepy underwater cave, Hellfire, a song literally about hell, and Kill the Beast, taking place during a dark and stormy night. There are songs that have more of a fun, happy vibe, usually because the personality of the villain is more upbeat and cheerful, like Mad Madam Mim or I Want to Be Like You. These songs don't exactly establish their characters as threatening, though. Oh, and there's probably going to be the color green in there somewhere. Disney villain songs always seem to heavily feature the color green, even if the character themselves has no green on them. It's become sort of an unofficial Disney tradition, but it's also a trend in animation, comics, and visual art in general. Good guys are typically associated with primary colors. That leads villains to be given secondary colors to contrast with the heroes. That's why every Spider-Man villain is green. It's not super important, but it's a cool bit of trivia that now you'll never unsee. Probably my favorite trope of Disney villains, though, is the presence of dramatic irony. In case you slept through high school English class, dramatic irony is when a character in the story doesn't know something, but the audience does. The thing about Disney villains is that, usually, the main character interacts with them a lot in the first half of the story without knowing they're a bad guy. One of the funniest things about Disney villains is when the heroes go, "Oh, you're so cool and nice. I'm so grateful to have you around to help me with my problems." And then the audience is just sitting there going, "That's obviously a bad guy. Freaking look at him. How do you not notice?"
Jafar, my most trusted advisor.
Some villain songs have the villain put up a genuinely convincing act where you could see how people would think they're a decent person. Or sometimes the villain song will happen when nobody else is around, so the villain can be open about their true intentions, like Scar and Be Prepared. But the real trick of all the best villain songs is for the villain to sing about how evil they are while the hero is right there in front of them, and yet the hero somehow never puts two and two together. In Poor Unfortunate Souls, Ursula sings about how all she wants to do is help people like Ariel, and that she would never want to hurt anybody, but her tone, attitude, and body language make it painfully obvious that she's a big fat liar.
And do I help them? Yes, indeed.
Yes, I've had the odd complaints,
But on the whole, I've been a saint.
Easily the masterclass of this technique is Friends on the Other Side. We know the title of the movie, so we know right away that Dr. Facilier is going to turn Prince Naveen into a frog. But during the whole song, he constantly drops super obvious hints about what he's planning, and Naveen has no clue.
If you relax, it will enable me to do anything I please. I just want to be free, hop from place to place. But freedom takes green. And when I looked into your future, it's the green that I seen.
My favorite little line of the song is,
I'm a royal myself on my mother's side.
because it's one more reminder that he's a liar. Since he's royal on his mother's side, but he presumably doesn't carry his mother's last name, there's no way to check if it's true or not. For such a hyper-specific and difficult-to-write trope, it's amazing how pervasive this irony is among Disney villain songs. It's like more than half. And in addition to that, there are a few songs that have it in a different form, where the villain doesn't realize they're evil. Like in This Is the Thanks I Get and both of Gaston's songs.
I give and give and give and give. You'd think they'd all be content.
The next villain song quality is, let's see, how do I put this? How gay they are. If you're not familiar with the concept I'm about to describe, that might have caught you off guard. But we need to talk about how most Disney villains are queer-coded. Quick crash course for anyone who doesn't know what that means. Queer coding is when a character is created with characteristics that are stereotypically associated with gayness. A queer-coded character might not actually be gay, but they're presented in a way that could make the audience think that they might be, or just reminds the audience of gay people somehow. Disney, and movies in general, have a long history of making villains that are queer-coded. Since homosexuality used to be viewed as evil and deviant, making a bad guy seem gay was an easy shorthand to make them seem more evil. So, while the good guys tended to be strong masculine men and beautiful feminine women, the bad guys were often physically weak, effeminate men and ugly butch women. Nowadays, society is more accepting of gay people, but queer coding in villains still persists because newer villains take inspiration from the old ones. I don't think I need to explain why it's problematic that these movies show gayness as an evil trait, but that doesn't mean we need to condemn all these characters. In fact, it's common for the LGBT community to really love these characters because they see themselves in them. Heroes are boring. They have to fit these narrowly defined characteristics of a perfect model of a good person, so they all feel kind of bland and samey. Isn't it so much more fun to be a bad guy, where you can deviate from the social norms and show off your true self no matter what other people think? That's why I'm including queer coding on this list of ways to make a villain song good. The queer coding makes the song so much more fun to watch. They're flamboyant, they're fabulous, they're letting their freak flags fly, they're being their authentic selves. It's a big part of what allows you to connect with them, even though they're bad people, and even if you yourself are not gay. The obvious winner for gayest villain song is Poor Unfortunate Souls. Ursula is literally designed after a famous drag queen, and the song is basically a drag show. But giving it a run for its money is Mine, Mine, Mine. Every other male character in Pocahontas is a plainly dressed, broad-shouldered guy, and then here's Governor Ratcliffe dressed in bright pink with bows in his hair, prancing around singing about how pretty he is.
Think how they squirm when they see how I glitter.
And the least gay song? Definitely Hellfire. I mean, the song is about how badly he wants to have sex with a woman.
Or else let her be mine and mine alone.
Okay, we've now broken down all the most important facets of the Disney villain song. It's almost time to go through the list and crown the winner for most villainous. But first, let me recap exactly what I'm judging here. I'm trying to find the most effective, archetypal villain song that represents all the best qualities of this specific subgenre. So, after everything we've analyzed, what makes a Disney villain song stand out as special? A good villain song establishes itself in direct contrast to the hero, their goals, and their world. It marks a temporary detour from the happy, fun Disney movie into something darker and more twisted. The aesthetics are darker, the colors inverted, the music ominous. It gets us to understand how evil and dangerous the villain is. But a truly great Disney villain song does more than that. It also, for a time, gets you to identify with the villain. Even as you're shown how horrible they are, the setup of the song draws you in and lets you see the story from their perspective for a while. The villain lets us know their inner thoughts and motivations. They show off their competence and confidence through both descriptions of their cunning plans and through their excellent musical prowess. We, along with them, laugh at the hero for not being able to tell how obviously evil they are. And we watch them be open and honest about their true selves, as the song demonstrates their refusal to conform to what society expects of them. That's what really makes Disney villains special, presenting that evilness in a way that makes you kind of like them. Before we crown some winners, let's crown some losers. By these metrics, which are the least effective villain songs? Let's start with This Is the Thanks I Get from Wish. The internet really tore this movie to shreds, and I've seen a lot of harsh words directed at this song specifically. It's not dark, it's a happy, upbeat song, and it makes Magnifico come across as a whiny little baby, not menacing, and not relatable. Then there's Hellfire. This song is pretty divisive. On the one hand, it's bold. It's a major artistic risk, putting a song in a Disney movie that's about religious guilt and sex. I admire it for that alone. But also, it's upsetting and weird and uncomfortable. Most Disney villains are evil in a silly, cartoonish way, but Frollo is uncomfortably real. There were and are real people exactly like him all over the world who have this unhealthy relationship with religion and force it on those around them. If I'm saying that Disney villain songs get you to connect to and empathize with the villain, this song does the opposite. You look into Frollo's innermost thoughts and recoil in disgust and go, what a weird little freak. And the ultimate loser for least villainous villain song is I Want to Be Like You. It's so ineffective at establishing King Louie as a villain that when I was a small child watching this, I didn't register at all that he was supposed to be a bad guy. I was just like, look at the funny monkey dancing. This song doesn't have a single one of the qualities I listed, except for the dramatic irony of Mowgli not realizing he's evil, but it only counts as dramatic irony if the audience sees through the lies, which they might not. He's not scary, he's not competent, he's not relatable. And because this is the internet, I should probably reiterate that these aren't necessarily bad songs. I'm not judging which song is the best, I'm judging which song is the most Disney villain-esque. Which one demonstrates the platonic ideal of a Disney villain song. These are songs that might be good and work well in the movies they're in, but they don't fit this particular label. And with that, it's time to talk about Gaston. Gaston might be the actual best Disney villain song. On every ranking list I could find, it was consistently at or near the top. It's great, obviously, but it's great because it breaks from the typical Disney villain formula. It's not dark, and it doesn't show Gaston as evil or dangerous. It's about how great and amazing Gaston is. And Gaston doesn't even sing most of it. It's mostly LeFou and the townsfolk. The brilliance of this song, and of Gaston as a character, is that he isn't your typical Disney villain. One of the main themes of Beauty and the Beast is that you shouldn't judge someone based on how they look. Characters in the movie are constantly misjudged based on their appearance, where people assume the worst about others just because they're ugly. The conceit of Gaston, both the song and the character, is that everybody worships him and assumes he's the greatest person ever just because he's a hot guy.
There's no man in town as admired as you. You're everyone's favorite guy.
It's great, but it works specifically within this movie. Future villain songs shouldn't be trying to imitate Gaston. That's a recipe for failure. So as great as Gaston is, it will not be a finalist for this video's rankings. And now, finally, it's time to find out which songs come out on top. Which ones have most or even all of the qualities I've listed here. Which song should be the model for which all future Disney villain songs should compare themselves to? I've narrowed it down to 4. Coming in at number 4 is Mother Knows Best. Even though the song itself is fun and bouncy, everything about it communicates how despicable Mother Gothel really is. Even though the song takes place in the tower, a comfortable place we've seen plenty of earlier in the movie, this musical number turns it into something ominous just by playing with the lights. The tower is covered in inexplicable darkness, so Rapunzel can't see anything, but Mother Gothel seems to be able to navigate in the dark effortlessly. Even though she seems nice, everything she does in the song is intended to shatter Rapunzel's confidence so she won't want to leave the tower. You can see how uncomfortable Rapunzel is in the darkness, letting herself be pulled along by Mother Gothel because she doesn't know what else to do. And then you see that Mother Gothel is actively creating the darkness. And there are all the really hurtful things she says disguised as affection.
Plus, I believe, getting kinda chubby, I'm just saying 'cause I love you.
It sells her as a master manipulator, and it's why in the reprise, you're totally sold on Rapunzel still being convinced by her, even after everything that's happened.
Rapunzel knows best. Rapunzel's so mature now, such a clever grown-up miss.
Oh, and in the reprise, we get more of that traditional villain aesthetic, with the dark scenery and the more aggressive, malicious tone. It's lacking a little in the relatability department. There's never a point where I was rooting for her as an abusive parent. And not every key quality is present in both versions of the song. But everything that is there is pulled off so well that it earned a spot near the top. The bronze medal goes to Be Prepared. The idea behind Scar as a character is that he's smaller and weaker than the other lions. But this song manages to make him physically imposing and just generally terrifying. We take a break from the beautiful, colorful African landscapes and spend a scene in this deep, dark cave. Scar lays out his plan, recruiting the hyenas, and you get a sense of just how dangerous he can be once you understand how much of a master planner and manipulator he is. During the song, he says exactly what he needs to say to get them on his side, in a sequence modeled to look like the freaking Third Reich. And all the while, the ground is shifting, and stuff's exploding under the crust, and he just casually dodges it all while he's singing. And it's all pulled together by Jeremy Irons' incredible voice. That line, you know the one,
You won't get a sniff without me!
is probably the most memorable single line in any of these songs. Which, fun fact, Jeremy Irons threw out his voice on that line, and the rest of the song after that is sung by Jim Cummings. If I hadn't said that, there would have been a bunch of comments about it. The one thing that holds it back from a higher ranking is the lack of direct dramatic irony. There's irony in Simba and Scar's relationship earlier, where Simba doesn't get that his uncle is evil.
You're so weird.
You have no idea.
But Simba's not in this song. That's what gives these next two songs the edge. Second place, Poor Unfortunate Souls. This one might have seemed like the obvious choice for number one. It's basically the original Disney villain song, and it inspired everyone that came after. Once you see my number one pick though, you'll see why it came out ahead. But also, yeah, Poor Unfortunate Souls is the original Disney villain song. Ursula set the template for how to draw the audience in with equal parts horror and fascination. She's dancing around as if she's on stage at a drag show, inside her deep dark underwater cave filled with damned souls and green lights, telling a very poorly disguised lie covering up how evil she is that Ariel is too desperate to see through. And she gives away just enough about her evil plan that we understand it without knowing exactly what'll happen next.
I'm not asking much. Just a token, really, a trifle. You'll never even miss it. What I want from you is your voice.
We get that she wants Ariel to sign a contract that she'll default on so that she'll own Ariel's soul. But what does she want Ariel's voice for? We're introduced to all these elements that then come together in twisty, unexpected ways as her plan unfolds later. It's great. So what beats it? I'll tell you what. Number one, Friends on the Other Side. These other songs are great and all, but one thing I can't help but notice is that they're all generally the least memorable songs in their respective movies. Villain songs are more likely to become forgettable because they're not as bombastic or exciting as the rest of the musical. But Friends on the Other Side is an exception. It might be the best song of The Princess and the Frog. In a lot of ways, I get the feeling that Friends on the Other Side took a lot of specific cues from Poor Unfortunate Souls. They both have the hapless good guy wander into the villain's domain, where the villain sings about their magical abilities and all the things they can do to help the good guy, reeling them in by telling them what they want to hear, up until the moment where the good guy enters into a binding contract that provides the main conflict for the rest of the story.
Take a gulp and take a breath and go ahead and sign your scroll.
Come on, boys. Won't you shake a poor sinner's hand?
Like Ursula, Dr. Facilier is also flamboyant and intimidating, and giving off major evil vibes that nobody else seems to pick up on. But this song takes the formula set by Ursula and improves upon it. I think that more than any other, this song rides the line between making you afraid of the villain and making you think he's kinda cool. He's a horrible person, yeah, but watching him dance around to this unique and catchy song, dropping double entendres all over the place, you can't help but be impressed. You almost want him to succeed in pulling one over on the spoiled, arrogant prince. And there's so much attention to detail in his every movement and in all the scenery, and the choreography with his shadow that telegraphs all his true intentions, down to the wallpaper turning into skulls whenever his shadow passes over it, and it's just perfect. We're in his world now, in more ways than one. So if I had to pick one Disney villain song that best represents all the things we love about Disney villain songs, I'd pick Friends on the Other Side. I hope that this little thought exercise has been interesting. I hope it got you to look at Disney villains a little differently in the future. And I hope it got you to appreciate how characters can and should get you to connect with them, even if they have no redeeming qualities whatsoever.